Hey everybody, welcome back to my podcast, Elijah Talks. It's been a little while. I've been busy and life and things like that, but I thought it'd be nice to get out my comfort zone and do another podcast. As you can see, I'm out enjoying the weather, but I want to talk about a few things. There's so much that comes to my mind often, and I have to kind of segment things off. And oftentimes, I mentioned it before, but it's kind of difficult to have conversations about certain topics when you have a communication style, and it's tricky because you have to find not necessarily agreeable people, but individuals that can properly execute their thoughts about certain types of subjects. Because I want to make sure that you're benefiting, from the topics and conversations that I have. Excuse me, as well as I am, because I don't just do it for you, I do it for myself. That's when it comes to these podcasts and even discussions that I have with someone else. So one of the things I'll start off with is being very, very, very cognizant of what people are thinking behind the camera and what people are saying behind the screen. Um, that is such a broad subject because it takes someone very, very brave to live their lives freely. And when I say freely, I don't mean recklessly, right? I think we all have our moments in our lives, but in a generation that's unique like ours, where you can live your life, but anonymity, privacy, these types of things are not commonplace, right? You can do your best, but there was a time where you really didn't have to work so hard to just have your life, make your mistakes, fall down, get back up, have your success, have your losses, and that was it, right? We're in a generation now where you live and you can be as private as you want to, but I often say if people want to be nosy or if people want to put stumbling blocks in your way, there's so many more avenues to do that now than there used to be. And one of the ways people do that is with their voice, um, and the lack thereof. I think it's a really unfortunate thing that there are so many people that let the world silence them because of paranoia and fear. And these are the subjects and the conversations that is sad that I don't see people wanting to have too often. It's more attractive to have conversations about relationships and this and that. These are the things that get people's attention more because it distracts from the deeper things and self-reflection. When it comes to looking within yourself, when it comes to taking accountability for things that you have done wrong, or for perspectives that are maybe not the best, things like that, we brush it off. I was even telling somebody, I was in church, many times I experienced this, and I said to my friend, I said, oftentimes we have dialogues, and I express to you how much it's such a horrible and exhausting thing to experience dealing with people that is so overzealous and different things like that. And oftentimes when these subjects are brought to light, it's almost like you can hear molecules move in the air. And I was saying because I understand it, because when it comes to things that you can easily point outside, you can point that way. It's easier to jump on the bandwagon. It's easier to agree. It's easier to be excited. It's easier to get rallied about that. But when it comes to things that start pointing at yourself, it's almost like you lose signal. You ever was just on a computer and just the screen blacked out? It's kind of like that. And it's kind of a sad thing because the moment you're able to sit in being uncomfortable and give into that moment of honesty and transparency with the things that may not be pretty about yourself, that's when you can get the best quality out of your life. But it's what quality do you get out of jumping on things only that are easily agreeable or easily digestible, right? That's if it's easy, you're not really getting as much out of it versus something that takes hard work. And accountability is really hard work for a lot of people. So these are the things that often strike me. And sometimes when you're a person that is that have transcended that phase where you're able to really be, you understand the value of just being honest with yourself, and not doing all that extra stuff, you feel kind of alone. It's like, wow, we people everybody around me, just, is it really that hard to just look at yourself and just say, yeah, that's me, or yeah, I gotta really stop doing this, or yeah, so I understand it's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes treading that journey in isolation can feel very difficult, even in itself. So I really want to just emphasize that if it's important to kind of just realize something about yourself, or just kind of, you know, um, take your power back from people or society that want to kind of hang that over your head as a sense of control. It's a very important thing to lean into self honesty. I think that is a very difficult thing for most people, even to this day. And that, even with that being said, you know, I think it's also very, very unfortunate that when it comes to conversations like, you've heard me talk often, those that are actively engaging in with me, and those that, stay in the invisible background, you both have heard me talk often about my issue and my beef with popularity and things like that. And the reason why popularity itself, I don't know that popularity itself, like the word itself and the meaning itself, is a bad thing. I think it plays a bad role. And not just that it plays a bad role, but it's the silence about that, regarding that, is why I speak so boldly about it. And I'm willing to, because I think that it's important that somebody is brave enough to be honest and bring things to the light that people try to shrug under the rug. And the reason why that's a really big deal is because there are so many people, especially, we're in Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. This is June. There are so many people that need support, that need you to be a friendly stranger at the moment. But what is it? What is it about materialism? What is it about popularity and connections and associations that is so impressive? What is it? Let's sit with that for a second. What this is, I mean, going through kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, I've moved a lot growing up. A little personal story about me. I moved a lot. And these are things that I've seen all throughout my life. So it's nothing new. But as an adult that has a platform, that has the ability to communicate more effectively what I observe, this is why I feel the confidence to bring it up, because this is nothing people want to talk about, because they often find themselves being a contributing factor to this whole scenario. But what is it about status? What, even when I was recording my album, um, it was more important to me to have good people to work with than people that were popular, than people that were, famous and things like that. Because, there are people that, when it comes to music, and this is a lot of you are guilty of this, where you don't, not just you, but in just at large, people are not drawn to things unless their favorite person is involved, right? This is just a statement, again, just a disclaimer. If you hear this as being bitter, then you're emotionally immature. If you hear this as just an honest truth that may make you a little uncomfortable, you're my audience. You're who I'm talking to, because you're the kind of person I can have dialogue with. And that is a real thing, right? And that is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't actually do certain things, because, as an artist, when you're starting out, especially, you have to really have kind of just go through your own journey to learn that you have to do what you do because of the passion of it. Everybody's not going to rally around you, what I'm saying, necessarily, unless you're associated or have some sort of value. For example, you can be working a 40K a year job, and then you get a salary increase of $100,000 a year, and the quality of life that you have increases, and all of a sudden, you find you have a lot of friends now because that's how that works. It works. Most human beings are not, and this goes for church folks as well. I want to make sure I'm making that clear. This Most people are not drawn to what's real, what's what's of quality and substance. Most people are not, even if they think they are. Most people are drawn to perceived value, and that perceived value may come in the form of money, of how you dress, of what kind of car you drive, of what kind of people you're friends with, who you know, who you're related to, what you've accomplished, what accolades you have. These are the types of things that pull people in the most. This is why it takes a rare person to value and see the strength and the superiority of the heart, when it comes to what's in a person and what they mean for you in your life. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I mentioned this is because we want to pretend often like this is not true, and it is true. It is true. It is true that, for example, with the album that I did. The recording my album was a childhood dream of mine. And I'm not being cheesy when I say that it was literally a childhood dream of mine, long before I met a lot of people that I know now. And so that was just it. Just it made sense for me. It was never sparked by some sort of vain idea or somebody telling me to do that. It's something I had wanted to do, and I was encouraged to do it by wonderful people I met. Thank you for their support. Sam and Dina being one of them, Monique being one of them. Um, Here and there some other people, but these two young ladies were the main contributors. And to why I felt courageous enough to finally try something. So I deeply appreciate you both. And if you did encourage me, Esther as well, and I'm just missing out, just it's you get it. But my point is, when I recorded that album, I knew from I ran into musicians, I ran into people that pushed me aside, not because I wouldn't pay them, because honestly, you pay people for their services. I think that's important, but because there's no perceived value, right? And so I'm using myself as an example to just really kind of justify part of why I'm expressing this to you. Because if you find yourself in that position where, just check yourself. When we say things like, it's important for people to be there for each other, it's important for us to support each other, it's important for men to look out for each other and build strong brotherhood and strong sisterhood and all these things, that is one of the things that will cause that to never happen. And once you're honest about that, then we can make moves forward. But it is unfortunate. It is unfortunate, and it's not really like, it is unfortunate that people have respective persons and stuff like that, and it's very, very common. That's unfortunate. But what's more unfortunate is the people that want to be complicit. And what happens is, when you're around people that are complicit, well, if you don't know what complicit means, complicit basically referring to someone that doesn't necessarily support or agree directly with something, but on the other side, they won't do anything to stop it. So they'll just allow things to happen, and they won't say anything about it. So it's kind of like the phrase "silence means consent," kind of like that. So because a lot of people around you can be so complicit with things, people like myself, or people that have the bravery or the courage to speak out against what is obviously wrong, but there has been such a long time of conformity to it, then you can be easily made to look like problematic. And but that's not something that bothers me enough to not say something about it, because I know how important it is for people out there that need to know that they matter, that you're valued, that you don't need to have anything to be important. You don't have to. You don't have to. I want to speak to you for a second. You don't have to mean a lot to a lot of people for someone to find you valuable, for someone to find you worth traveling for. You don't have to be. You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have the best fashion sense. You don't have to have the most connections. You don't have to have any of that. to be worth loving and worth being excited to be around. You know what I'm saying? So and I want to hold you accountable. If you find yourself only giving people due respect, giving people admiration based off of frivolousness, you're the problem. I was having this conversation with my mother a long time ago about how I'm like, Mom, isn't it crazy? Like, what is it with people? Just over the years, I've seen this, and she taught me a lot of the things that how I am the way I am. She was never been the kind of person that's impressed with people. She's often really, taught me like just in different ways, like the value of quality people. So it's just those things stood out to me growing up. But I was telling her, I said, Mom, what is it about this popularity contest where I will step on your head to get to someone else? That type of thing. Or I will put on this facade or act like this person or do this thing so I can be included. And all these types of things that it's so strange to me because I can see the value in this person, but they don't even see it in themselves enough to stop chasing this rabbit. And she was saying to me, well, you just can't, worry about them. You just got to worry about yourself. And I said, well, that's true, but why must I sit quiet about it? Again, we often have, even on Facebook, I often see, there's things that it's like all the energy you spend, all the energy we spend pointing fingers at that one, pointing fingers at this one, talking about that one, saying why don't they this, saying all that energy can be used to lift each other up. And I remember I mentioned that on Facebook on a post. It was a whole thing. But I mentioned how people like me, we do so much work. We put so much thought, so much energy. And even if we don't do it all the way right, we I'm not me because I don't expect it, just being really honest. But when people like myself do what we do, we expect our community to come through for us. And for the most part, when you do honest, quality work that's positive and passionate and of love and of goodness, crickets. But when you do something or say something provocative, or when you say something that's, scandalous, or you say, did you see, you share this thing of this person, that's when everybody becomes unearthed. you know that's why I always reference to people, my invisible followers and my invisible watchers, because it shouldn't it be fascinating how that's what needs to be studied, and that's why I'm bringing that up. The distinction, it's that gray area, right? It's the if you can see that it takes gossip, scandals, drama, he said, she said, what you found out about this one, what you found out about this one, what you saw him doing, what you saw her doing. If it takes those types of things to warrant a quality comment, a share, all that stuff, all the engagement, if that's what it warrants that for you, you have some soul searching to do. Because I've seen it, even aside from myself. When I put my album out, I'll just make this example too. And this is if you think this is venting, you're not my audience. My audience, they're way more intelligent than that. But my when I put my album out, I didn't expect anybody to support or enjoy other than myself and maybe like one other person I knew. Because my own family don't really even listen to my music, as far as I know. But even outside of that, that's why it meant so much to me to know and hear from people personally how the music has been affecting them. Um, because that's enriching to me. It's an enriching exchange. But there will always be people behind closed doors, picking apart what you do and seeing like, look at how his mannerisms are, and look at what he said, and why he talk like this, and why there are people that are, when you've dealt with that for a long time, that's not new to you, so it's like, but people don't know what your experiences are, so that's a different story. But to put positivity out there, it was a demonstration to me that if you want action out of people, most people, if you want action out of most people, throw something controversial out there. You know, that's why when that one post went up, it's like that was just so interesting. It was, but so my point is, you know, really do some introspective work and lean into yourself and ask yourself, do I really value people in the way that I should? And you can't get around these things. You can't get around these things. Whether you're so-called Christian or not, you can't get around that stuff. If you can't see the value in human life, in human beings, but you can only see it in human beings that are lifted up by people and have some sort of accolade and have some sort of popularity, if that's the only way you can find value in somebody, you're mighty shallow. And that's not necessarily meaning that's your fault, because maybe that's the kind of way you was raised, even with celebrity culture. I was just telling somebody how when you look at these talk shows, does it not strike you interesting how they only really have celebrities come on their talk show? And I understand it because they have an audience, so that's how you can reach people. But at the same time, do you know how many people, regular people, you come across every day that have so much experience and so much wonderful things that they can offer the world, but we'll just overlook that because who are you? I encourage you, try to unplug from this matrix, as they say. That's the best way I can explain it. Is there are things that go on in your world that sometimes, if you just take a step back and give yourself permission to be the culprit, give yourself permission to be the one that I'm talking about. It's not personal, Um, give yourself that permission. If you have a weird obsession with people that are popular and you brush aside people in your life that are not, because of your perception of value and your obsession with connection to proximity and status and all these types of things, if that's really a part of you, acknowledge that, because you can't hide it. It's very obvious. The people that reach out to you, that see valuable things in you that you brush away because they're nobody to you, people see that. And I encourage you, try to see that for yourself, because once you see that and once you acknowledge that about yourself, do you know how many doors you open? And I promise you, if you're an artist, if you're a singer, if you're a musician, if you're this or you're that, look, doing what you love the right way, even if you're not connected to popular things and celebrity, and you don't have connections and all that stuff, even if you don't have all these things to get your stuff respected, do it because you love what you do, and let God do the rest. Let God do the rest. That's why I meant what I said by when I did my music. If it could just help one person, that's why when I write songs, I write them in a way that can speak to how I feel about things, and then that connects with somebody, and that's enough for me. It should be enough for you too. So I really hope that that makes sense, because and of course, when it comes to videos like these, people are often they're just on the edge of their seat, because it's like, again, when you do the wrong thing, that's what perks people's ears up. But when you do the right thing, it's too boring for people to care. And that's an unfortunate scenario to kind of find yourself in. But I really want to let you know that. So that's the first little segment, and I also, I want to talk a little bit more on the overzealous thing. And it's just in a general sense, right? Not necessarily just spiritually overzealous, but like, it is so damaging, because we need to just be honest about those things. Like, when it comes to music, so many collaborations I wanted to have, I just couldn't, because of overzealousness. And it's sad. It's sad because I was at a certain point in my life I was very overzealous about a lot of stuff, but I moved past it, and I can admit that. But just don't add no more stress to yourself than you have to. If you make mistakes, okay, you'll figure it out later. Like I remember when when I had to when I got an update, let's call it that, about the vocals and the music. I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. Noted. I'll just do that moving forward. But it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like, I mean, all the support was great, but it's like, y'all, I just don't. It's not. It was not the end of the world, and that was not something that I took and over exacerbated it. I did not just start adding rules and start overthinking every little thing. No, you know what I'm saying. So it's like, I really want to just make sure you know that it is more dangerous just because you may not want to talk about it or you may not want to fess up about it. You know yourself, you know, and it is a very, very, very toxic thing. And I will, God willing, I will continue to talk about these things about, and because the reason why I will continue to, until other people start rallying and start bringing this up as well, I will continue to speak out about it because my heart truly goes out to people. There are some really kind souls. There are really kind people out here that have so much to offer, that need so much support, and we are so much more eager to tear people down, to criticize people, to judge people based on their past, and all these types of things. We're so much more eager to do that. We're so much more eager to do that than find ways on being good to people. Why? Why? What is the disconnect? Do you is it that is it gets does it give you like a rush? But and it's this is why I do. This is why I go so hard the way I do, and I really hope to be a blessing to the people that I come in contact with, because I know how rare it is to find somebody that will see you for yourself, not see you for your flaws and see you for the things that you're insecure about and stuff like that. That's why even if it being Men's Mental Health, I want to close out with this. Men's Mental Health Month is one of the most hypocritical months, in my opinion. And that's probably left field because you probably think I'm super supportive of it, which I am. But it's one of the most hypocritical times of the year because a lot of men themselves do the damage to other men. A lot of times men like to point fingers at women and say all that. Nah, everybody's not married. Everybody's not a couple. Everybody don't got a relationship. So that if you're married and stuff like that, that's that's a different matter for another time. We're not talking about that. But outside of women problems, men are one of the most damaging contributing factors to the health of other men. And I mean that in a broad sense because, if we are not able to get on the same page and treat, especially American culture, man, a lot of American men really have a narrow mindset of what it means to be a man in general, what it means to be brotherly. Very narrow mindset, very narrow mindset. I often talk to people about how even certain things like America is a very over sexualized society. So even with men in America, I saw a video of this one young man. He was trying to, embrace his father or something like that, and he kicked him off and was like, oh, that kind of stuff. It's like, do you realize that's not a universal thing? Stuff like that. But it's so again, it's a little bit exhausting sometimes to be the only one with some sort of with clarity when it comes to these issues. But you know, on one breath, men will pop up and say, we need to let men express themselves and these things like that. But ask yourself, when your brother gets around you, or when men get together, and we are actually trying to get in touch with each other and really express ourselves, do you clown each other, or do you actually take each other serious? Because if you can't care about other men's mental health 365 days out the year, you're the problem. And it's something to be very, very, very aware of. It's something that I just don't. it's such a longer conversation that it is, but I really wanted to just kind of park there for a second because, if you're a man and you feel like you're doing all this by yourself, I will keep telling you, it doesn't make you strong just to tough it out. No, it doesn't make you strong. People want to make you feel that way, but because of culture and the older generation and a lot of their mindsets, but it's not. It doesn't make you stronger to just tough things out, because while you're toughing it out, you're killing yourself emotionally and spiritually, most of the time. So it's just a very, very important thing that we try our best to be there for each other. It shouldn't be as hard as it is, but it's connected to a lot of things. It's connected to emotional immaturity and stuff like that, and a misunderstanding of, even within church. There are men within church or out that don't really understand what it means to be masculine. That what they don't know what that means. They don't. They have a version of it in their mind, and that's it. That's not knowing what it means, because there's a difference between being a man and being masculine and being yourself. What makes you unique? There's differences between the two. You know what I'm saying? Because if there was not a difference, every man would be identical, and that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? It never has been. Not it, You may be from the hood, but every man is not from the hood in the world. Like, that's just an American ideology. That's just American culture. That's You can go to Norway, you can go to Japan. Men are not wearing three-piece suits everywhere, right? That's not. So you have to really open up your mindset when it comes to understanding the worldview, so that way you can broaden your understanding. So anyway, I'll just leave that there. But I really hope you can really understand what I mean by that. If you aspire to do things, you have to see the value within yourself, because I'm just going to let you know ahead of time, people most likely aren't. The reason why I say things like most people this, most people that, is because it's true. There are people in between, in the cracks, that you will come across. There are just normal people that can appreciate a good thing when it comes by. But most people, especially in this celebrity driven culture, are only attracted to things that are glamorous. Um, this is why there was musicians I had reached out to, and producers and stuff like that, was trying to drag their feet with me and treat me like a nuisance. Why? Because I'm not popular. I'm not a famous singer or nothing like that. But had I been Vashawn Mitchell or something, then it's like, all right, bro, when you need me. So these things are real. These things are real. It's not about being bitter. It's just about being honest. A person's resume, a person's accolades, a person's experience, a person's connections, a person's family, a person's wealth, a person's what kind of home they live in, the kind of things that they can do. All these things matter more to most people than who you are. And it's sad, because honestly, a lot of times it's not even the fault of the person. That's one thing I told my mom too. Like, people that are on the receiving end of this kind of biased treatment, a lot of times they didn't. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. You don't. If let's say I'm like a worldwide known singer and I have a kid, it's not my kid's fault that people want to, you know, give him out all the things and treat him so well, and give him so much praise and all that stuff just because of me. It's not his fault, but it's a reflection on the people. They're the problem. And this is why I'm pointing this finger at every direction, because we are so quiet about it, and it will continue to happen, and there will be innocent victims along the way, which there are, until we have the guts to speak up about it. Because I know what I'm saying when I say this stuff. It's not, if I said a lie, then you can pull me to the side. But saying a lie versus saying things that make you uncomfortable, but and I know is true, is just two different types of things. So I really, really appreciate the time that we spent chatting, and I really hope that you're able to understand, like, the broader sense of why I say these types of things. And again, it's very, very important to be introspective, take the time to just be honest with the things that are real, even if you're a part of the problem. Being a part of the problem doesn't mean you're a lost cause. being a part of the problem just means that we're just traveling in this world together with different lived experiences and different habits that are picked up, So it's just, I think we're only doing ourselves a disservice by trying to brush it under the rug versus just being accountable and just being honest about it. So I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this podcast. I would say share it, but you can do whatever comes across your heart to do. But I appreciate you taking the time to um, sit here with me. All right, till the next one. I appreciate you all. Have a good one.